Hi, welcome to a new episode of Archetype Custom Support. In this series, we discuss legacy decks' weaknesses in the current meta briefly, and then we try to fix them with custom cards. I made a poll on my Discord server to let my members decide which archetype to feature in this video. Guess you guys are craving some Nordics. No, Nordics. Supposedly, they are a synchro spam archetype whose main purpose is to turbo their level 10 Azure synchros. Did you guys know that Azure gods were the divine beast of 5Ds? Because they live up to their reputation. Long story short, they were trash. They had nothing to work with and no decent payoff to work to. I mean, just look at this. Their Rota was a trap, their field spell works against them, and oh god, why? 1 year after the Master Rule 4, Konami released Legendary Hero decks, where design mistakes were made. Many mistakes. To be fair, but just to be fair, Golvik used to trade your horrible normal summons into a level 10 Azure. Optimally, you would chain Hippo Carnival to Golvik to both chain block and avoid getting -3 if the effect was negated, plus you might get another free Azure if you banished Alvis. That's it. Now you have a board of 2 mediocre beaters. Say hi to your daddy. Thankfully, for my sake and yours, Konami made a second support wave, and this time, it was actually decent. Let's go through a quick analysis. Strategy. The main goal of the deck is to turbo your Azures, which I'll give them credit. They can do so consistently, but the end product is mediocre at best. Consistency. Evaldi and Heat Skill are doing the deck some justice. Power. Offense-wise, the Azures are big beaters, but they have no protection whatsoever. Golvik does grant them target protection, exhausting your opponent's removal a bit, but that's it. Defense-wise, Svalin is carrying its archetype really hard. It also doesn't protect you from spells and traps, thus why the archetype is vulnerable to back row. Stamina. Where? Okay. No. While the Azures can bring themselves back during the end phase, it might be already too late for you. Variety. Despite having some busted cards in the last support, they were restrictive and lock you out of the good stuff. Although it's a soft lock, the archetype cannot afford to play around it with its current pool of cards. You are stuck with a bunch of goats and Barak gods. So what do we need to fix them? A whole new foundation. We need more starters and searchers for their key cards for more consistent and interesting plays. The more we stray away from Golvik, the better I get mentally. More extenders, cause it's a synchro spam deck. New Azure extra deck tools and Nordic relic cards for more respectable end board. Starting with Sigurdriva of the Nordic Ascendant. It's a dark level 2 fairy tuner effect monster with 500 attack and 2100 defense and the following effect. If you control a Nordic or Azure monster, you can discard 1 card, special summon this card from your graveyard. During your main phase, you can reduce this card's level by 1. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one of your Nordic cards that is banished or is in your graveyard to your hand. If this card would be used as a synchro material for an Azure monster, you can treat it as a non-tuner. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Azure monsters. You can only use each effect of Sigurdriva of the Nordic Ascendant once per turn. This card combos well with any foolish burial effect, which Nordics do have in Vanadis. If you have a card to discard, it's technically a special summon from the deck. It recovers one of your Nordic cards that are in your grave or banished zone upon summon. It can also manipulate its level and be treated either as a tuner or non-tuner, depending on your needs, giving you lots of options. Dueling of the Nordic Alfar is a light level 3 spellcaster tuner effect monster with 500 attack and 1800 defense with the following effect. For a synchro summon, you can substitute this card for any one Nordic tuner. You can only use each of the following effect of Dueling of the Nordic Alfar once per turn. If you control no monsters, or if you control an Azure or Nordic monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is in your graveyard while you control an Azure or Nordic monster, you can discard 1 card or banish 1 Nordic card from your graveyard, add this card to your hand. Dueling completes the trinity of the Omni Nordic tuners, being a Nordic Alpha that can be used as a material for any of the OG Azers. It is a Korobane for the archetype, and it turns any searching effect into a body on the field. Also, it can bring itself back from the graveyard to your hand by discarding a card, turning any recovery effect into, again, a body on the field. Lofisen of the Nordic Alpha is a dark level 3 spellcaster effects monster with 1200 attack and 2000 defense, and the following effect. If you control no monsters, or if you control an Azure or Nordic monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send 1 Nordic card from your deck to your graveyard. If a spell, trap, card or effect is activated while you control Loki, Lord of the Azure, quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, negate the activation and destroy it. During the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn, add this banished card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Lofisen of the Nordic Alpha once per turn. Odinson of the Nordic Beast is a light level 3 beast effects monster with 1700 attack and 1200 defense, and the following effect. If you control an Asian or Nordic monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one Nordic tuner monster from your deck, but you cannot attack this turn except with Asian monsters. When a monster effect is activated while you control Thor, Lord of the Aesir, quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, negate the activation and destroy it. During the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn, add this banished card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Odinson of the Nordic Beast once per turn. Borson of the Nordic Ascendant is a dark level 4 fairy effects monster with 1900 attack and 0 defense. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can set one Valhalla, Nordic Celestial Haven, directly from your deck. During your main phase, you can reduce this card's level by 1. When your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect that special summons a monster while you control Odin, Father of the Aesir, quick effects, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, negate the activation and destroy it. During the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn, add this banished card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Borson of the Nordic Ascendant once per turn. Valhalla, Nordic Celestial Haven, is a field spell card with the following effect. When this card is activated, you can add one Nordic monster from your deck to your hand. Aesir monsters you control cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effect. Once per turn, you can target one level 3 or higher Nordic monster you control. That target's level becomes its original level reduced by 2, and if you do, special summon one Nordic Celestial token. Warrior, Light, level 2, 2000 attack at 2000 defense, in defense position. You can only activate one Valhalla Nordic Celestial Haven per turn. The new field spell Valhalla is a Rota, protects your Aesirs from both targeting and destruction, and gives you a level 2 token by reducing the level of a Nordic you control by 2. Lofison, Odinson, and Borson can start your plays in their own ways. Lofison has a Korban effect like Dvalin and can send a Nordic card to the graveyard when summoned, giving you options for lots of follow-up plays depending on which card you sent. For example, if you sent Hildskjolf, you can add any Nordic monster by swapping it with a card from your hand. If you sent Dvalin or Sigdriva, you'll get material on the field by discarding a card. Odinson can be special summoned from the hand if you control either a Nordic or Aesir card, and will straight up special summon any Nordic tuner from your deck upon summon. Both Dvalin and Gullinbursti are great targets since they can extend your synchro plays even more. Borson can set the new field spell from your deck, and that effect is Ash proof. It can manipulate its level, which is a great niche in synchro decks, and has a graveyard effect that's also shared with the last 3 cards. By banishing themselves from the grave, Lofison can negate and destroy a spell trap card or effect if you control Loki, Odinson can negate and destroy a monster effect if you control Thor, Borson can negate and destroy any card effect that would special summon if you control Odin. And if they do so, they will be back to your hand during the end phase to reuse them again in your turn. Bloated and overpowered? Yep. Especially Odinson. He's goated. Okay, calm down. That last recursion effect was a last minute add-on. You see, after testing, even with a one-time disruption, you wouldn't run the original Aesir because you simply have a variety of other options. And by options I mean her. Sleipnir, Nordic Steed of the Aesir. It's a light beast link effects monster. It requires 2 effect monsters including a Nordic monster. You can banish one card from your hand or graveyard, send one Nordic monster from your deck to your graveyard. During your opponent's turn, quick effects, you can chip with this card, special summon one non-link Nordic tuner monster from your grave, and if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one Aesir synchro monster. You can only use each effect of Sleipnir, Nordic Steed of the Aesir once per turn. This card is the 3rd Foolish Burial of the Archetype, with a cost because it is more accessible since it is on an extra deck monster. You can send Sigurdriva or Dvalin to link up or extend your synchro plays, or send one of the mini Aesirs to give your big Aesirs disruption value. The tag out / axle synchro effect is both a plan B if your plays were interrupted during your turn, or as extra interruption in case things went accordingly to plane A. Wishful thinking. Brynhildr, Valkyria of the Aesir, is a light level 6 fairy synchro tuner effects monster with 2400 attack and 2800 defense. It requires one Nordic tuner and one or more non-tuner monster. When this card is synchro summoned, you can set one Nordic relic spell trap directly from your deck. You can chip with this card and up to 2 monsters whose combined levels equal 10, special summon one level 10 Aesir synchro monster from your extra deck. This is treated as a synchro summon. During the end phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one level 10 Aesir monster from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Brynhildr, Valkyria of the Aesir, once per turn. It has an Ash-proof search for Nordic relics, it cheats out your big Aesirs, and it banishes itself to revive said big Aesir. Mwah. This card is so important for the archetype. Unlike the level 10s, you can easily access this card. There are tons of combination you can do to access her. Also, you can use Brynhildr with the level 3 to access Shinshin, or a level 4 Dark for Chaos Angel. Banishing an opponent's card and giving your synchro monsters Towers protection against your opponent's monster and battle immunity to everything else. Tyr, Champion of the Aether, is a light level 7 warrior synchro tuner effects monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. It requires 1 Nordic tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monster. When this card is synchro summoned, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls or 1 Nordic card in your graveyard. Return that target to its owner's hand. If your opponent special summons a monster, except from the hand, you can draw 1 card. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can set 1 Nordic relic spell trap directly from your deck, but it cannot be activated if you do not control an Aether monster. You can only use each effect of Tyr, Champion of the Aether, once per turn. Level 7 is another common level combination in this deck. Tyr has both the abilities to compulse an opponent's monster or recover your resources. This card works great with Sleipnir, allowing you to bounce a card in your opponent's turn to disrupt their plays, and if you chain it to a special summon, you'll get an extra draw too. The Albaz-inspired Graveyard Search in the end phase is there because, you know. Hela, Grimm of the Aether, is a dark level 9 zombie synchro tuner effects monster with 1800 attack and 3800 defense, and the following effects. It requires 1 Nordic tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monster. Your opponents cannot banish cards. During the main phase, quick effects, you can target up to 3 cards in any graveyards, banish those targets. Fuck you to your element. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 Aether monster from your graveyard except Hela, Grimm of the Aether, special summon this card from your graveyard, and if you do, set 1 Nordic horror trap directly from your deck. You can only use each effect of Hela, Grimm of the Aether once per turn. Nordic horror? Huh. Well yes, there are 2 of them, and both are inspired from the events of Ragnarok. Nordic Horror, Fiery Armageddon, is a continuous trap card with the following effects. If you control an Aether monster, target 1 effects monster on the field, negate that face-up monster's effects. Also, it loses 1000 attack. When it leaves the field, destroy this card, and if you do, add 1 Fenrir the Nordic Wolf from your deck to your hand. Nordic Horror, Ouroboros Break, is a continuous trap card with the following effects. If you control an Aether monster, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, take control of it. But while you control that monster, it cannot activate its effects. When that monster leaves the field, destroy this card, and if you do, add 1 Jormungandr, the Nordic Serpent, from your deck to your hand. Okay, listen to me. These might sound unnecessary and over the top. I think we're like over 14 cards now. I know. In my defense, both these cards were made in 2019, where hyper consistency was not a thing. I love their design, and I really wanted to include them in this modern version of Nordics. Also, what's not there to like? It's a searchable Fiendish Chain and Crackdown. Now moving on to our last Aether, Freya, Lady of the Aether. It's a light level 10 fairy synchro effects monster with 3500 attack and 4000 defense. It requires 1 Nordic Ascendant tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, if a card or effect is activated during the main phase, quick effect, you can negate the activation. Cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this effect's activation. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this face-up card you controlled was sent to the graveyard this turn, you can banish 1 Nordic Ascendant tuner from your graveyard, special summon this card. When summoned this way, you can send 1 card from your deck to your graveyard. Now, Freya doesn't destroy the negated card, but it is spell speed 3. It also has the same revive effects as the original Lords of the Aether, granting you a foolish burial effect if you do so. Alright, now to the relics, starting with Nordic Relic Ultima Mjolnir. It's an equipped spell card with the following effects. Target 1 Nordic or Aether monster in your graveyard, special summon that target, ignoring its summoning condition. If the equipped monster battles, your opponents cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard while it was equipped to an Aether monster, you can add 1 Nordic Relic spell trap from your deck to your hand, except Nordic Relic Mjolnir. You can only activate 1 Nordic Relic Ultima Mjolnir per turn. Nordic Relic and Varanot is a continuous trap card with the following effects. If you control no Aether monsters, you can banish up to 3 Nordic and or Aether monsters from your field or graveyard, minimum 2, and if you do, special summon 1 Aether synchro monster from your extra deck whose level equals the total levels of those banished monsters, but send it to the graveyard during the end phase. This is treated as a synchro summon. If you control an Aether monster, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, destroying 1 card your opponent controls. You can only use 1 Nordic Relic and Varanot effects per turn and only once that turn. And Varanot's Necro Synchro effect will help you make a comeback in case all your resources end up in the graveyard. Because, of course, of your opponent's interruptions. The second effect is also a great removal option in case you control an Aether monster. Mjolnir is the searchable monster reborn, as we all know how good that shit can be. It also gives you extra advantage if it left the field while equipped to an Aether, searching for another relic. The pluses this card will give you by reviving Odinson or Valdi, just oof. Okay, so we are currently done with the custom cards, but there is one that I really want to show you. It is not needed at this point, but it was the first Nordic card I made for this archetype, and I really want to show it because it is my video. Fight me. Ragnarok Peak, Azure God Odin, is a dark rank 10 fairy exceeds effect monster with 4000 attack and 3500 defense. It requires 2 or more level 10 monsters. Unaffected by other cards' effects. This card's name becomes Odin, Father of the Azure, while on the field. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card. Special summon one Azure or Nordic monster from your graveyard in attack position. It cannot change its passive position and must attack if able. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this face-up card you control was sent to the graveyard this turn, you can banish one Nordic relic spell trap card from your graveyard. Special summon this card. When summoned this way, you can send one monster on the field to the graveyard. Listen, you might actually want to run this card if the deck proves to be capable of summoning level 10s to your field. It changes its name to Original Odin to synergize with Borson. It also has the usual Lords of Azure and phase effects. Instead, this one is miles better because it has removal, and targeted removal. Now normally at this point, we'll talk about how the deck changes on paper and then end the video, but no. This time, we're gonna see an action using Dueling book. I know, it's exciting. For this test, we'll play a match against a rogue strategy, then a top tier strategy of the current meta. The first match will be against Sky Strikers, and the second match will be against the Element Kashira. OCG ban list because the deck has 0 win rates against unlimited Ishizu tier. Alright, enjoy! Okay, so the deck performed better than I thought. Their win rate is high against rogue strategies, almost 72%. Against tier 2 decks, it does go down to 56%, but that's still a great score. Against tier 1, it goes further down to 35%. But honestly, Tournament, Kashira, and Sprites are one of the most horrible archetypes designs I've seen so far from Konami, balance-wise. So 35 was actually impressive. This would make the deck a tier 2 in the current format, and might even rise to the tier 1 if the top tier decks were balanced by the ban list. Let's dissect the new changes. Their consistency is now excellent, and a little bit too much if you ask me. We have now a ton of cards with which you can start your combos, the most reliable being Odinson, Heelskjalf, Borson, and Valhalla. We also have great new extenders with Dvalin, Lofisan, Brynhildr, and Mjolnir. They all do an impeccable job with their ease of use and versatility, giving you a variety of combo options and allowing you to play around your opponent's disruptions. Their stamina is good. The recursion effects of the mini Azure come in clutch in a lot of times, especially the GOAT. Dvalin and Sigurdriva graveyards effects are also very crucial for your recovery plans. Valhalla and Gulvik also protects your Azures, which can stall the game until you can draw one out or, battle it out. Their power output is good. Offense-wise, all your Azures have great stats. Also, Tyr's Compulse effect does allow aggressive plays. Defense-wise, the mini Azures give you great negations if you control the respective Azure god. Also, Freya's Omni Negates can't go wrong. And Vanarat's Destruction can be really annoying. And Hela, who shuts down any graveyard reliance strategy, which happens to be the one that's currently run in the meta. Variety-wise, they're alright. There are times when you can summon Baron, but in most cases you won't be able to attack with her because of Odinson's restriction, so you're better off with your Azure toolbox. The deck does have its weaknesses. It relies heavily on its graveyard, so it is prone to cards like Negro Valley and hand traps that disrupt your graveyard plays. It is also weak to the commonly used floodgates. Dark Ruler no more and droplets can shut down your entire board since the archetype has no response to it, and while the archetypes can play around disruptions, against a fully established board, they can do so little. So, are there any oversights in the design of these custom cards? Yep, two major ones. Valhalla's protection effect overlaps with Gulvik, which means if you have both of them, your opponents need twice the effort just to touch your Azers, unless they have droplets or super poly. Another one is how many pluses Odinson can give you with all the new good stuff the archetype has. That card is busted, I admit. I didn't know what I was thinking when I was designing it, and it is one of the reasons why I can see the archetype going to tier 1 in case the current threats, Tyr and Kashira, were to be demoted. That's why I decided to make a few adjustments. Valhalla would discard after the search effects and can now only protect your Azures from effects destruction. Mjolnir will negate the effects of the special summon monsters if it is a Nordic monster. Odinson will require you to banish a Nordic card from your graveyard for its special summon effect. Now, these changes did not change overall power level of the deck. The deck can still do its plays, it's just now you have to be careful with your resources and you're no longer gonna get unfair pluses. All the cards stated in this video are available in Dueling book. The Mechlords one too. I would really love if you guys sent your replays of both decks against other strategies. The allowed card pool being the current official TCG OCG cards plus my customs, especially Mechlords, since sadly they didn't get this treatment. And we're done! Finally! This video took me longer than the last one, especially the duels. We had like dozens and dozens of duels which we couldn't use due to the manual nature of Dueling book. Lots of mistakes and rollback plays that were impossible to edit out. So a like is very much appreciated. Subscribe for more videos like this, and if you're interested in voting for the next archetype, you can join us on Discord. Link is in the description. Also, if you like my work and want to see more, you can support me on Patreon. There are lots of benefits you can get there, so go and check it. Give me your money. Bye.